So if you own your own business, it's really important to establish good bookkeeping habits and, just get in the routine of tracking things properly. And I know a lot of people don't like doing that. Maybe it's not that fun for them. Maybe they have anxiety around numbers. Maybe they're just a bit disorganized, but it really is very important and something that's often overlooked and something that often results in problems for the business. A lot of businesses fail not because the business idea is a bad idea or the owners aren't motivated. It can come down to financial issues and people not properly tracking expenses and revenue and just not having a full understanding of where their business is at and how it's performing. I know that people think of accounting and bookkeeping mostly for tax purposes, and they are for tax purposes, but they're not just for tax purposes. They're also for performance. If you don't know how much you're spending, if you don't know how much is coming in, you don't know if your business is doing well or not, or in what areas it's doing well and what areas it isn't. And how can you improve, or how can you know that your business is even profitable if you're not tracking your own expenses and your own revenue? So it is for you as well, and it is for taxes, but very much a good way to track the performance of your business. So now just some tips on getting established for bookkeeping, developing good habits. The first thing would just be start simple. Just use a spreadsheet if you want, especially if it's a small business and you don't have a ton of transactions. You don't need any expensive bookkeeping software. You can just use a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, and those work really well, especially if you are pretty, comfortable with using those spreadsheets and know how to organize them properly and know how to track the right information. The next thing is actually understand what needs to be tracked. So I have a previous video on this that you can check out that covers some of the main expenses that you need to track. But basically you need to track everything when it comes to your business. All the money coming in, all the revenue or even items that you're selling, and all of your expenses, whether those are purely business expenses or even expenses that are part personal, part business. Like if you use your personal vehicle for your business, then you'll probably want to track your gas, track your car washes and your maintenance, because part of those expenses can be claimed as business expenses. So make sure you're tracking all of that. You want to track the date of the transaction, who the vendor was or who paid you, maybe the type of payment, did they pay e-transfer or credit card or check? Maybe some notes on the transaction, all those details about the transaction, maybe even the invoice number or the receipt number, so that it's easy to find that in the future and just to have good notes for documentation. Another tip is just develop good habits early on. So maybe get in the routine of, setting aside 20 minutes every week just to update your books, or 10 minutes a day, or even monthly if it's an hour every month. Just get in the routine of doing that. Or even when you're going out to make a purchase, like let's say you're filling up your car with gas and you know that you need to claim your gas receipts, then just right away after you fill up for gas, just take a picture of that receipt and then set yourself a reminder to add that to your books, and then just keep that picture on file. Like just have a separate file for business receipts on your phone or on some type of cloud storage. And then maybe even set aside that 10 minutes to once a month look over your business credit card to make sure that you've inputted all those expenses and that you have all the receipts for those. Or if you don't want to do your own bookkeeping, set up that good relationship with a bookkeeper where they know that you're sending those receipts, once a month, mid-month, or whatever it is. Another tip is to track your bookkeeping chronologically. So what I actually do on my bookkeeping sheet, which is just a spreadsheet, is I have my different categories. So I might have, insurance or office expenses or office rent or things like that. And I just obviously track it chronologically. So rent for January, and then February, and then March. And then at the end of the year, because I have that separate section for office rent, it's easy for me to make sure that I've added all 12 months of rent and I'm not missing anything. So that's a good way to do it, is have those separate categories for different expenses and track chronologically. Another tip is to make notes. So if you had an expense where you went out for a meal, where did you go and who did you meet with and why? This can be good for yourself just to remember these things, but in the case that you ever get audited by the government, then you have some notes that can help you justify why you did have that expense. Another tip is obviously keep receipts. So those could be physical or digital. You know, if you're paying for online advertising and you only get a digital receipt, then good. At least keep it in your email or download it and put it in a file or send it off to your bookkeeper if someone else is doing your bookkeeping. Or if it's a physical receipt, like you paid for some gas for your vehicle, you can have a folder to put those physical receipts in, or you can just take a picture and store it digitally. You know, if you're ever audited by the government, you're going to need receipts to prove that those expenses were legitimate. So keep those on file and keep them on file for multiple years. I would say it's also important to keep your bookkeeping in a way that's easy to transfer. And by that, I mean easy to send to someone else or easy to send to, you know, your phone or back to your computer or different platforms. So something like a spreadsheet can be really valuable and just a really easy way to track your bookkeeping. Whereas maybe some types of accounting software, you know, maybe your business partners can't access it very easily, or maybe it's harder to bring up on your phone. You know, sometimes I will just input a receipt on my Google spreadsheet on my phone rather than on my computer. And then the last tip is to link your sheets. So if you have a spreadsheet where you are doing your bookkeeping, then you can have, you know, one sheet that's for revenue, and then one sheet that's for expenses, and then one sheet that's for taxes. You know, if you have different sections for expenses, you can have a subtotal at the bottom, and then on the side, maybe you can kind of have like an income statement with all those sections where you have the totals from each section. And then on the next sheet where you have your taxes, you can have it linked to show your total revenue from the first sheet, and then your total expenses from the second sheet onto that third sheet. So these are techniques that are useful and really aren't that complicated on Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets that can be really valuable and just make things easier for you. And then what you can do is just set up a template for the first year and then just use that every year, just changing out the inputs, but keeping the same kind of organized template. And one thing that I do is I lay out my business expenses kind of in order of how I'm going to be inputting those for my taxes. So maybe it's insurance, and then it's rent, and then it's office supplies or something like that. On my spreadsheet, I have those listed in the same order so that it's easy to transfer those items from my spreadsheet to my taxes. So hopefully that was helpful. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you'd like to subscribe, please go ahead and do that. And you can check out some of my other videos on my channel. I have quite a few of them that cover business management topics and business startup topics. And if you have any questions on those topics, feel free to just leave a comment in the comment section and I will address it there.